When 3 women were found dead inside a house in Bushy, a small town in the Hertsmere borough of Hertfordshire in the south of England, it was immediately apparent this was not a typical crime. Word spread like wildfire across social media that a lone individual, a male, had murdered 3 females from the same family inside of their own home. Details of the grim discovery were made public, that the women had been killed with an unusual weapon, a crossbow. Police advised residents to secure all windows and doors, locking down the local area. The tension was palpable as people waited to learn the details of what had gone on inside and whether there was still a dangerous individual prowling the area. News would soon emerge that police were looking for a 25-year-old man named Kyle Clifford. He was the ex-boyfriend of one of the victims, Louise Hunt. The couple had separated only 3 weeks previous. Louise had been the one to instigate the breakup, arranging a meet-up for a make-or-break conversation about the relationship on June 24, 2024. Afterwards, Louise decided their differences were irreconcilable and sent him a text on June 26, ending things for good. Despite accepting her decision on the face of it, he set in motion a wicked plan that ended in her death and anyone that was with her at the time. On the 9th of July, he would murder Louise, her sister Hannah and mother Carol in their own home in an act of pitiless savagery which shocked the entirety of the UK. This is the story of the unspeakable crimes committed by Kyle Clifford. Chapter 1: Seeds of Doubt. When the Clifford family moved into the terraced house in the leafy green suburbs of Enfield, North London, more than a decade ago, no one could guess that it would be the setting where 2 killer sons would grow. Kyle Clifford's early life was a disrupted one, as he and his 3 siblings were moved from one crowded home to another. Neighbours described him as a placid, very reserved child, adding that of the 3 brothers, he was the last one you'd expect to cause any trouble. Kyle's school records, however, show that he was in trouble for bullying. Police files show he had come to the attention of the Met in relation to possession of cannabis, assault without injury, and a theft. In 2017, an incident one evening in Enfield would rock the family to its core. Bradley Clifford had run over a moped driver, Subhan Khan, 18, with his prized Ford Mustang car after chasing him through the streets of one summer evening. Lying motionless and catastrophically injured, Khan was then beaten up by Bradley, who told the teenager he deserved it and punched him 9 times. He would never wake up. Bradley received a life term with a minimum sentence of 23 years. Life went on, and Kyle, lacking in inspiration and direction after the jailing of one of his brothers, became a trooper in the Queen's Dragoon Guards. While in the army, he became obsessed with watching graphic and violent videos. Colleagues were reported to dislike him, thought he had misogynistic tendencies, and couldn't be trusted. He left after 2 years without seeing active service. He then had a stint at a fire and security installation firm in St Albans, from February 2022 until July 2023. It was during this time that he met Louise Hunt, a hard-working young woman who was building up a business as a dog groomer. She was the daughter of horse racing commentator. Clifford and Louise Hunt had been dating for about 6 months when she introduced him to her family. He was her first serious boyfriend, and while she knew about his brother's past crimes, she didn't tar Kyle Clifford with the same brush. However, friends of the Hunt family began to notice red flags during Clifford's relationship with Louise Hunt. He was controlling and didn't like Louise having male friends. He would phone her, asking when she would be home, even though they did not live together, and generally had a controlling attitude. Clifford had also asked Louise not to wear makeup or what he considered to be revealing clothing. The seeds of doubt Louise Hunt had about her relationship with Kyle Clifford were sown throughout the 18 months they were together, culminating in an ugly scene at a friend's wedding on the weekend of June 22, 2024. She could never have imagined that instigating a breakup would culminate in not only her murder, but that of her sister and mother only 3 weeks later. Louise had been a guest at the wedding of Clifford's friend in Scarborough when she became upset after he had made comments that he had slept with some of the other female attendees. Louise made her feelings known to Clifford, and the pair met for a make-or-break conversation about the relationship a couple of days after the wedding. She then sent him a text on June 26th, ending things for good. Her family were relieved. They did not like the way Clifford treated Louise, finding him disrespectful, arrogant, rude, and odd. He had hidden relationships with other women from Louise and went on a dating site moments after receiving the message ending theirs. Although Clifford appeared to accept the decision, replying after 10 minutes to wish her all the best, an hour and 20 minutes later he started writing a suicide note on his phone. However, Clifford did not mean his well wishes. He was in fact very angry. Angry at Louise for rejecting his attempts to rekindle things, but also at the Hunt family generally, as he correctly assumed that friends and family members had advised Louise to end the relationship with him. His revenge would catch everyone off guard. Chapter 2: Unspeakable Acts. Over the next 2 weeks, Clifford would piece together the parts of his murderous plan until he was ready to execute. On June 28th, he was captured on CCTV buying a 30-meter length of rope that would later be used in the attack. 2 days later, on June 30th, he began the first of a series of searches on his phone for crossbows. He also looked up air rifles and was calling a mental health phone line called Talking Therapies. A couple of days later, July 2nd, Clifford looked up the Facebook profile of Carol Hunt, Louise's mother, and had a telephone conversation with his brother about buying a crossbow. He purchased a Horizon Cornet MXT405 compound crossbow, a pack of 6 crossbow carbon bolts, and a cocking device for £357. On the same day, Louise made a note on her phone titled, "When you're sad, look," which set out how Clifford was racist, had commented he did not like transgender people, and had used belittling language towards her. Clifford started searching online for knives on July 5th and purchased a high-level 10-inch butchering steel knife for £89. Later that day, he went to London where he met a friend he knew from the army, and the pair stayed in a hotel. The friend noticed nothing strange about Clifford, but thought it was odd that he left the next morning without saying goodbye. He also received a message from his sister, Sian. The conversation that ensued is chilling with hindsight. She asked him, "Why are you taking your crossbow out? What are you playing at? It's illegal." He brushed off her concerns and replied, "I'm at Zach's, lol, chill, shooting in back garden, chill." She then tells him, okay, well, don't take it out, put it in the boot." He reassured her saying, "Yeah, it's wrapped up in the boot, don't worry." The day of the attack began in an ordinary fashion. Louise's father, John Hunt, a well-known racing commentator for the BBC, had headed out to work, as had her beautician sister, Hannah. Animal lover Louise had run a dog grooming business from the Hunt family home and had that day been working from a pod in the garden. At one point, she texted Mum Carol to place a lunch order on Deliveroo from Joe and the Juice. At 1:48 p.m, after parking up close to the Hunt's family home, Clifford noticed John's car parked outside and made internet searches for horse racing today to check whether he was at work or in the house. He then took a black rucksack from the boot of his Seat Ibiza, which contained the 10-inch butcher's knife. Using a deceptive ruse to get inside the house, Clifford carried a white plastic bag containing some of Louise's possessions, playing the part of an ex looking to move on peacefully. Carol was the one who opened the door to Clifford, who told her he'd written a card to say bye in a card penned to Carol and John. Clifford thanked them for allowing him to be part of the family for 18 months, adding, "Your family has shown me love and kindness." The conversation that followed was picked up in a recording. With no clue what Clifford was really up to, Carol was heard telling him, maybe think in the next relationship, the way you are, and maybe try and change. If you carry on like this, you'll end up on your own. Continuing his false act, Clifford told Carol Hunt that he was making efforts to change his life and had started therapy. It was then that Carol showed empathy towards Clifford, telling him, "I don't think you're a nasty person, and, well, I wish you luck, Kyle." He then asked for a bag to put Louise's possessions in. It was at this point that things took a devastating turn. Within a minute of being let inside the property, a series of screams could be heard. Carol died quickly from stab wounds to her chest and stomach. He returned to his car at 3:10 p.m. to retrieve the crossbow hidden under a white cloth. He waited in the house for about an hour while Louise worked in the garden, completely unaware of the horror inside. At 4:13 p.m, she entered the home, and a faint scream was captured on the audio. She was restrained with duct tape and assaulted by Clifford. At 5:52 p.m, he messaged John Hunt, the BBC horse racing commentator, from Louise's phone, asking what time he would be home. He then shot Louise with the crossbow at about 6:50 p.m, killing her. This was just before her older sister Hannah returned home. Hannah was recorded on the CCTV shouting at Clifford, "What is wrong with you?" and messaged her partner, "Call police, Leggy, immediately, to mine now. Kyle here, now, he's tying us up." He shot Hannah with the crossbow at 6:54 p.m. and walked away from the property a minute later. Hannah managed to phone the emergency services, and they arrived at 7:10 p.m. Carol and Louise Hunt were found dead, and unsuccessful resuscitation attempts were made on Hannah. It is thought that Clifford had intended to destroy evidence with fire in some way after finding petrol cans in the boot of his car. Further searches of his phone would reveal searches on whether alcohol was flammable, and his fingerprints were found on bottles of vodka within the Hunt family home. For whatever reason, he ditched this plan and fled the scene, sparking a major manhunt. The following day, after a 22-hour manhunt, Clifford was located at a cemetery in the Lavender Gardens area of Enfield, North London, at around 4 p.m. Clifford shot himself in the chest with his crossbow as officers approached him as he hid in undergrowth, which severed vital spinal tendons, leaving him paralysed from the chest down. This was an attempt to end his own life, left to the last possible opportunity, and therefore was rushed and ineffective. Ironically, this act will leave Clifford in a situation that could be considered as fitting punishment, wheelchair-bound for life and surely incarcerated for the same duration. If his attempt at ending his life had succeeded, it would have been a quick way out, without having to see the pain and destruction he had caused for so many. Now he will have plenty of time inside to reflect on and consider his actions, with a considerably poor quality of life. He required a 24-hour-a-day police guard throughout his hospital stay of 10 weeks. Whilst he lay in hospital, the only comments he made were "sorry" and "what I have done is atrocious." When he was finally fit to give an interview, he replied no comment to all questions. Clifford eventually came to realise the level of evidence stacked against him and changed his plea to guilty of murder after initially denying the offence. It is expected he will face a whole life sentence where, due to his injuries, he will have to be fed and bathed by a third party for the rest of his life. He will most likely spend the majority of his time alone due to danger from other inmates who will want to do him harm. And all of this because he couldn't move on amicably from the breakup of a relationship that had only gone on for 18 months. Rest in peace, Louise, Hannah, and Carol Hunt.